Welcome everybody to our Rainbow Table Talk. We're really excited. Our Pride Committee has been working very hard on a lot of activities, but this is one of our first all staff events. And we're really happy to be able to do this both virtual and live. This is live from 7th Avenue. So we're very excited to be in the same room with our panel, our table guests. And I wanted to take a moment to just thank our Pride Planning Committee because they have done a fabulous job of putting together a number of events that will be coming to you all. But what we're starting with today is something that we thought would be a little different than just having a panel, but having more of a conversation with a number of LGBT folks from different generations and folks who have been really doing the work both in their own lives, but also in their communities. And to give all of you an opportunity to hear from folks along the LGBTQIA spectrum around what their experience has been and what their experience is today. Because we have folks who came out many, many years ago, and we have some folks who are like literally in that process. And so we all know how the world has changed over time and how acceptance has grown, but we all still a long way to go. So I'm very excited to turn this panel over, this Rainbow Table Talk. I gotta stop saying panel. This Rainbow Table Talk over to our illustrious moderator, facilitator, host, Pastor Kevin E. Taylor, and he's gonna take us through the process. Before we start, I just wanna remind people that we will have a Q&A near the end. And so if you have questions, and we really hope you do have questions, please put those in the chat. You can send them directly to Megan. Megan, what's your last name? Spell it for me.
Zagoric.
Starts with a Z. Megan with a Z. Send Megan your comments, your questions, anything that hits you throughout this process that you would like us to talk about, send it to Megan, and then she's gonna rush those over to Pastor Kevin. So feel free to do that, and we will get started.
Now,
Yes. For real.
Good afternoon, Good Shepherd Services family. I am Kevin E. Taylor. I'm the Reverend Kevin E. Taylor. I think that Denise asked me to moderate because I'm an expert talker. I am both senior pastor of Unity Fellowship Church, Newark. I am director of LGBTQ services for NJCRI in Newark. I'm a television producer. I've been in or around the music industry since 1991. So yes, I'm old. I wanted to came out a long time ago that Denise was speaking of. And so we're just gonna go around the table and introduce ourselves and have a conversation. Because so often the conversations that pop up in Pride are really kind of isolated to what makes you proud, why is it important, and so people don't often get the opportunity to kind of engage. And so cross generation, cross communities, this is going to be a good time to have a conversation. Y'all all right? Elizabeth, introduce yourself.
So my name is Elizabeth Noel. I'm 13. Sure to say.
What'd you like? Who your favorite singer?
My pronouns are she, her, they. I sexually identify as bisexual, and I go to JHS 292 in East Brooklyn, New York.
That was wonderful. Well done.
Hi, everybody. My name is Melody Ruiz. I am the Senior Internship Coordinator for the Learning to Work program in the Bronx. Shout out to my BX people.
I think we lost the Rainbow Talk.
Hi, everybody. We're just working through some tech issues. The meeting will be live streaming again shortly. Thank you for bearing with us.
Some of this will get captured. We can start with Mary, since that's when we lost
During me.
Delilah. Yeah.
Rats.
Yes.
And we're back.
Folks, can folks hear us now?
Can you
Can
hear
you put up
me?
reactions to let us know whether or not you can hear us?
Yes.
Yay.
Thank you.
So we're gonna, oh, that's a cute little baby. We're going to go back to and start from Delilah again, because I think that's where we lost sound. And then as folks are talking, they can just remind people who they are in case for some reason we lost your names. Delilah, you wanna?
Okay, so let me start over, rewind. Hi, everyone. My name's Delilah Ramos. My pronouns are she and her, and I identify as pansexual. Where am I
Said
remembering?
you told us programs.
Oh, yes, programs I was a part of. I'm an alumni from our Euphrasia, Marion Hall, and Children's. God. Is that it? Is that it for now? Was that good enough? Did I miss anything else?
What are you doing currently? Did you say? you
Oh,
were
what am I
interning?
currently doing? I am currently an intern for Michelle Yanchi, the CEO of our Good Shepherds. And I will be working with the external relations team very soon. Now, I'm gonna pass it on.
Okay, thank you, Delilah. My name is Mary Keene. I identify as lesbian, queer, she, her are my pronouns. I mentioned earlier that I also came out in my 20s, but my 20s were a lot longer than some people's. I'm a parent of a lot of kids from foster care who are in various places on the spectrum. And now I'm the proud grandmother of a lot of kids who are also in various places on the spectrum. And it's wonderful to see them just being able to be themselves and supported.
You're not gonna be, you know they can see you though. So, again, one of the reasons that Good Shepherd Services wanted to have this conversation for Pride Month is to talk about things we don't normally talk about or in ways we don't normally engage. So here's a question I'd like to ask. What brings you joy? It's not what makes you proud, but what brings you joy in the community and the work that you get to do? Where do you find joy? Delilah, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh, starting with Delilah.
Starting with Delilah.
Okay, what brings me joy? Well, I've been working with the community since I was 15. I was part of the center's youth program. I did a lot of work. Turn your phone down. I did a lot of work with foster homeless youth who were LGBTQ, and I used to do environmental justice work there. What gives me joy out of doing it? I don't know. I love making a positive impact on my community. I like seeing people succeed. You know, I came from a very rough background, and I was always taught to be the change. So that's what I do.
Elizabeth, you were talking about a group that you chair at school. Tell us
Yes,
about that.
so there is an LGBTQ group that I have at my school called Shades of Love. And I am the co-president, and I'm really proud to be the co-president. I love my community, I love the people in it, and I like to see a lot of people that come who are not only a part of the community, but also are allies. So it's good.
What brings me joy? Well, I've been working with youth since I was about 14 years old. What really got me started was more my grandmother, trying to help her learn English and just, getting to know different types of personalities and different people. And once I started, within Good Shepherd, like I finally felt like I found my home and my niche, like I can actually be myself. So especially working with students within the LGBTQ community, who didn't have an outlet, and just being that kind of advocate for them, made me want to continue, to help them reach the potential that I know that they have that others don't really want to see in.
Well, in addition, I touched a little bit on my kids and watching them and my grandkids being comfortable in who they are and not, hiding and struggling and stuff. But also in the foster care world, I work with a lot of youth as well who are on the spectrum. And over the years, I've seen enormous difference in whether they're comfortable being themselves or not. because I've been doing this for about 22 years. And, at the beginning, they never felt safe or comfortable. And over time, as there's been more openness about the queer community and the spectrum and just, engaging and talking about it more, I've seen more and more kids really being very comfortable identifying. And then we work, and you got to believe we work to match kids with families. So we have a lot of queer families working with us. And so, and they're matching with queer kids or any kid, it doesn't matter. And the kids are amazing in that, we ask them, do you care? What kind of parent you want? And inevitably they say no. We don't care if it's a single mom, a gay mom, a lesbian mom, a couple, gay couples, gay guys. We've matched all, every possibility. We have trans families. It's just great to see that. And again, it's because we're in New York, but it's still really amazing to see the progress over the years.
One of the things I just wanted to clear up, because oftentimes when people hear Reverend in LGBT conversations, they stop listening. So my pronouns are he, him, his. I identify as gay. I came out when I came out. So literally, my conversation with my mother happened in December of 1977. I was,
We're back.
hey,
We're back
we're back. Again, right? Back
Again.
Just in
There's no
time
stopping us.
for the coming out conversation, because as I was saying, movies and conversations always make it seem like that's such a weighted thing. But Mary, you were saying that now, that you've seen your grandkids have a different time of it. Elizabeth, you co-chair a LGBT group at school at 13.
Yeah.
So what has the coming out journey been like for you? Like not just your own, but friends and family who might, because you're out, might, hem you up in the kitchen at a family event and say, I think
Well, for me, coming out was a little difficult, but not as hard as I thought it would be. So my father is gay. So growing up, I was supposed to believe that I was wrong because I lived with my mother and my mother was Christian. So she planted in my head that it was anything that involved the LGBTQ was wrong. So, with my father, he always was himself, and that's one thing I do admire about him. He never really cared about what my mother or anyone outside of that would say. So, I don't know. Just one day, he was helping me with something. I don't remember what it was, but I just told him, I was like, Dad, I think I like girls. And then it just came out of nowhere. I just told him, and then he was like, oh, okay, that's cool. Well, I support you. And that really made me feel happy because, again, it was supposed to be wrong. So the fact that I told someone and they accepted me for it made me really happy. So when I came out to my mother, I think that was maybe a year later after I told my father. At that time, she had already got married. So I never really got to have a real opinion on how my mother felt about it because her husband kind of overshadowed the whole thing. But I think the hardest part about coming out to her or to them, was saying the actual sexuality. So when I told her, I was like, I like girls, but I also do still like boys. So there's a possibility that I might give it to a female or a male, but I don't know. But I do know that I do like girls. And, my mother was about to say something, and then he just was like, this is bad. You're Christian, supposed to be Christian. You're not supposed to like girls. That's a bad thing. And then it's just he kind of made me feel bad about who I was. And that made me feel kind of hurt. So after that, I just went in my room. I called my dad and I told him that I told her because it took me a while to build up that courage um, to let her know that from the way that I grew up. So from that point on, um, whether she liked it or not, I expressed myself. Like if I saw someone on TV that I liked, or if I had a crush on a girl at school, I would tell my mom, and I wouldn't really care if he was there or not because, I mean, it's not my dad, so I just never really cared about his opinion on who I was or who I liked because you came in the middle of my life, so I'm not gonna let you come in and then make me feel bad about it. For a second, it did hurt, but after that, it was so. From there on, I always express myself. Um, Whenever I meet close friends, I mean, like that's one of the first things I tell them because not everybody would be okay with that. So I always do. But coming out was a big point in my life. So
And this conversation is so important too, because what Elizabeth reminds us when we're having the coming out conversation is that for young people, it's I like, right? Because sometimes the conversation has so much stuff on it and so many perceptions. And it's like, I like a girl. What does that mean? At 13, what did it mean for you? It's like, wow, she's pretty. That's it, right? And so it's just beautiful to see you be able to stand in that so soundly, just because that's what it means. I like. I like blue. I might wear purple tomorrow. Just I'm journeying, I'm discovering. So Mary, talk about your wonderfully vast family that might include the entire rainbow.
It does, it definitely does. So yeah, one of the things when I started as a parent, I mean, everybody, the agency knew that I was queer and so forth and so on, and that they were all fine with that. And when I started, I got licensed originally because I wanted to just parent lesbian teens. And I started out, I live in Yonkers, called Westchester County. I want to become a parent, lesbian teens, but we don't have any. We have pregnant teens. I said, no, that I'm not interested. So then I went to the city. And so then as I got licensed, they said the same thing. Well, we don't have anybody right now. Would you take straight girls? I said, well, okay, it's not their fault. I guess I will. We got to learn to get along and so forth and so on. So I'll just wait until, they find the lesbians for me. So I started out with, straight girls and a couple more straight girls. And it wasn't really till I got involved in the system that I found the lesbians. I now know where they all are. So they're not that hard to find, actually. But then, over time, the kids were just different. They were whatever they were. One of my first finds, actually, was a young girl who was probably 16 at the time. And I had gone to an event. We were filming her for something. And I identified her. And I just asked her, would she be on a panel to talk about being different? Because she was also Gothic at the time and blah, blah, blah. So she said yes. So she had been in care for quite some time, was not comfortable being who she was, did not acknowledge who she was, and ultimately came to live with me and the other girls, and then became herself and was able to do that, and ultimately identified also as pansexual. But it's still, as Elizabeth said, it's still hard. It's really still hard because you still feel like you're gonna disappoint or hurt other people, or they're not going to approve, because there still is, even in New York, there's a lot of disapproval and stuff. I came out in the 70s like you, but I was a lot older at the time, and it was something I had denied for years and years and years because it just wasn't allowable in my world. It wasn't something you could even think about, or certainly not speak about. So I just ignored it, and I did everything to be other than, even though I knew who I was. But the minute I realized and admitted who I was, that was the end of the disguise for me. I just said, no, I can't be anything but genuine.
My friend Karamo Brown, who's going to be hosting a talk show this fall, is one of the 5 members of Queer Eye, has a statement, a phrase that he calls, instead of coming out, called inviting in.
Mm.
So you decide who gets to be at the table, hello, of your life.
Mhm.
So Delilah, talk about what it felt like the first time you invited someone into your truth.
Well, I like that you said inviting in instead of, because well, I came out twice. The first time I came out, or I invited people in, I was probably in middle school and I identified as a lesbian at the time. And for me, it was pretty easy, even though my mom grew up in a really strict Pentecostal background. She always let me choose who I wanted to be, even if like it was different from her own beliefs. So I always had that freedom. And I also personally never cared what anyone thought of me. So like even when I went to school or something and other people were like cracking jokes or being rude and disrespectful, I just didn't really care. I was like, all right, that's you. That's your problem. Like, there's no reason for you to have a problem with me. It has nothing to do with you. I don't like you. I don't find you attractive. I don't see how it affects you at all. Then I came out again years later as pan because I realized maybe my middle school and high school journey, I just never found someone who identified as a man who piqued my interest. And as I got older, then I found a man who piqued my interest. And I realized like I didn't really care about someone's genitalia, if I'm being honest. Like genitalia is not important to me. Their sexual identity really isn't like concerning to me. How their gender expression isn't important to me. For me, it's more just like what's in the heart and what's up here. Well, that's my coming out story.
Well, just like Delilah, I had that same mentality, growing up. I just thought that, doesn't matter which kind of genitalia you have, as long as you treat me right, and we have a connection, then it's all good. But as I got older, I realized that I kind of focused more on the females. So I was like, okay, I kind of like this. I initially started inviting people in because throughout high school, I was always scared because of my family. I grew up very, very religious. And my family's also old school Dominican, so to be gay was like a big no-no. My mom always tried to instill in us that, oh, if you're gay, you're going to die from AIDS. You have a disease. And nobody's going to love you. And I'm like, okay. And I recall one time my mother saying that she didn't raise her kids to be gay. So just to hear that kind of hurt, and I kind of had to hide myself a little bit. So when I finally got to college, about my second year in was when I found my girlfriend, and my first relationship ever, as well as my first female relationship, learned a lot through that process. And the whole time, my mother thought we were just best friends, but she didn't realize that for the last 4 years, we were just.
Oh, nice. I see the panel is different now. The setup.
So from there, I was always scared to come out to my family. My younger brother was the first person I came out to, and he embraced me with open arms. And I feel like today he's the only one that truly acknowledges me for who I am. While some people in my family are still kind of like, yeah, we know that's you, but we're still gonna keep our distance a little bit, I always thought I was gonna kill my grandmother. I was gonna be the one to kill her, send her to the grave. But she found out.
She means proverbially,
Yeah,
not
not really.
parenthetically.
Yes, no. My grandmother's about to turn 91, thank goodness.
Right,
She's
yeah.
going strong.
Yeah,
But
it did not kill her.
yeah, but that day that she found out I was a lesbian, just it devastated me. Oh boy, that situation was just wow. And I remember telling her, it's like, so because I'm gay, are you no longer calling me your granddaughter? And her exact words were, you said it, not me. And after that, she hadn't spoken to me in about 3 to 6 months. She moved out. Every time I came out of my room, she would go back into her room, close the door, kind of like avoiding me. And that happened for about 6 months until she moved out. From there, I don't know if it happened that she forgot. I did not remind her, because these days she's now like, when you're going to find yourself a husband and have kids. And I'm like, well, not gonna happen the way you want to, but it will eventually happen. And to this day, my mother does not know. And I've come to terms with the fact I've written poems to her. And I remember saying that I wrote her a letter back in 2007, but I never gave it to her because I knew she would resent me. And the way her mentality was is she would just straight up, just not speak to me, disown me as her child, like, oh, that's not I didn't raise you to be this way. So you're wrong for this. Like, change it, go get married, find a boyfriend. And every time she calls me, is like, when are you gonna find yourself a boyfriend? When are you gonna give me grandkids? And I keep telling her, like, no, mom, that's not gonna happen, and lo and behold, I'm still here, but at least I'm more comfortable now within myself, and I'm proud more of myself. So regardless of what my mother thinks, I have friends and family that embrace me for who I am and fight for me every day, and they just keep pushing me to be myself. And, that to me is more family than my actual blood family, taking me in. So
There's a lot of this conversation that, that really covers the spectrum. I often start my speeches in colleges and other spaces. I was one a fat, Black, asthmatic, gay nerd in the project. So it's like, I fought a lot. So what people thought of me just was kind of like, I fought more about being smart.
Yeah.
Anybody, because remember back in the day, that if you were the smart kid and you got the stuff right, you destroyed the idea that the teacher had to grade on the curve. Like, Kevin got it right, y'all could have. And so they want to fight out. And so just there's so much in being different that causes struggle, that you did address differently as the guy, daughter did, and that you dare, express who you are in ways that say, I really don't care. I'd like to invite you in. But so where do you find even today with your family, with your friends, with yourself, the struggle still is to be the fullest version of yourself? What is the thing that you think still you find yourself shrinking a little around?
Well, out in public, I know sometimes when I go out with friends, most of them are straight, they have their boyfriends with them. And I've encountered people, mostly men, that, try to flirt with me, and I try to be nice, and I'm like, no, it's not my cup of tea. And they're like, oh, why? I was like, well, because you have an extra tool.
Coffee.
Yeah, I drink coffee. You have an extra tool that I don't really need. So, or nor that I like. And I've been told more than once, actually, it's like, oh, that's a waste. What a waste. Like, you're just wasting right now. And I'm like, why? Like, oh, because you haven't found the right D, to make you convert back to being straight. And to me, I'm like, no, no, that's not it at all. Like, it just, I don't, yeah.
That men don't get it.
Yeah.
Elizabeth?
Can I go to someone else?
Sure. How about you, Mary?
So, in general, my whole life, everybody knows, right? And I'm comfortable with that. My family, thinking back in the 70s, I really thought I'd be disowned, Irish Catholic and all of that. My brothers, my father, my mother had already died, were fine with it. They were just like, yeah, so what's for dinner, what stuff like that. I said, okay, great. And then my friends were the same. And I was totally, totally shocked. But once I had that, as I say, I didn't care. The rest of the world, I really didn't care. And so I was who I was. I worked in an organization. I had my girlfriend's picture on my desk, while friends of mine would make up boyfriends and go in on Monday and talk about what they do with their boyfriends. They were living with someone for 30 years or something, and they still, and I couldn't live like that. So today, again, I'm totally comfortable, and I still recognize that in certain environments, you still have to be cautious about who you are because of potential dangers. And I don't like confrontation and stuff like that. I'll go around with a pride shirt on or something like that. I have no hesitation about that. But if somebody were to start, a confrontation type of thing, I would just walk away from it pretty much. And I know it's possible. Again, even in New York, it's happening. I think there's a lot of backlash right now about too much, like we made too much progress all of a sudden. And now, people want to push back on it. And I think, you still have to be a little bit cautious, but proud at the same time.
She's so proud. I like that.
Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying about being cautious on where you are. Another thing at my school is a lot of the kids there are very, I feel as if they're very homophobic. And they use a lot of derogatory words and say a lot of mean things to some people. And when I see that, especially when my friends do it, I get really angry because I take offense to it. Not only because I'm a part of the LGBTQ community, but also because, you know, I have other people that are around me that are a part of this community. So it's like, you're offending me. And I'm also offended that you're saying this because I have people, my family members that are a part of this community. So it's like, they use a lot of like the F word. They say that to people. And that is a really, really big trigger for me because I've heard people call my father that in front of me. So it's like, from knowing who he is and then hearing someone say that, I just know it's a bad thing automatically. So it's like, I just wish that I wouldn't have to be cautious. But I think because of the way society is today, it's really important to be cautious of how you are around certain people and facilities.
I remember having a friend being called one time the F word. And you know, he's very feminine, you know, he just has that type of personality, you would just love him. You know, and I called him my husband, you know, Melanzel, like that's my gay husband. And I remember we were playing handball, someone said that to him, and I guess whoever called him that didn't realize how close everybody else that was playing handball was to him. So, you know, a whole bunch of us, like 5 deep, kind of just went and, you know, handled that situation, you know, and never saw those kids again, you know,
That's
and
right.
at the skate park, because they knew better than to, you know, verbalize certain things like that, because that was a community that we weren't going to be tolerant of that.
Okay, can you repeat the question again?
So just the places in your society or in yourself where there is still struggle.
Oh, well, I feel like especially like here, even in New York, there's a lot of issues with people targeting trans women of color. I had a few friends who were murdered because of it, really young, like 16, 18, 23. And it's not talked about as much, and you don't see the support in, like, I'm going to be clear, it's Black trans women,
Say
and you
it.
don't see
Say
support from
it.
the Black community supporting these trans women. And from other communities, they're not being like supported, and they're just being murdered, and no one's really like creating policies to protect them from these situations or like anything. So for me, I think that's like the biggest issue that really gets to me currently, because most of the issues, like I've been targeted personally as like when I was identified a lesbian, I had girlfriends and I was holding hands, and I would be on the train and I'd have like random people scream at me, but I'm like, I didn't really care about that because I'm from the Bronx, New York. I'm from the Bronx, New York.
Let 'em know.
I said, that's a whole different situation. I don't care about that, but like seeing my trans sisters like being murdered, and I have so many trans friends, and I worry about them all the time. Trans men, trans women, because like there's not enough support for them. And sometimes I wish there was, and even I wish there were more marches, more organizations supporting them. But there's a lack of that, even here in New York City, and we're so liberal.
I was in a cab once, somewhere in the village, and Pakistani cab driver, I was in the back of the cab, and we were at a light. And as the people in the light in the crosswalk started to pass, we realized there was a guy with black trans woman, and it was pushing her like across the street, harassing her. And like like third push, he tried to push her so hard that she was supposed to fall.
Mm.
She didn't fall. She went into her purse and pulled out a hammer
Oh.
and then began to beat him back across the street. And the cab driver and I, well, he was banging, yes, get him, get him. And then, that's why girl kill him, and it was just so interesting because, so much of this conversation and the struggles go all the way back to the fact that school age kids still take the bright light and say that's so gay. That's so gay is thrown on.
Yeah.
My son is 32 now, married, about to have his third kid, and came home one day and said, Dad, I think I'm gay. And I was like, oh, great. Got a lesbian mom, gay dad, and this suggests that he's somehow raised. And I was like, so who do you like? What's this about? Is it your best friend and around the corner? It's kind of, and he's like, no, they say, how do you know you're gay? They said, because they said I am. But why? Because of the way I dress and I laugh. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Right.
So my son, when I adopted him was, he's a petite thing, he's 5'7", 5'8", a buck and a quarter, 125 pounds, who used to wear like boys in the
Yeah.
Voix shirt and said he wore a size 38. I was like, I wear a 38. What is wrong with you with your tiny little waist? And so we went shopping, and the person he invited to the world to meet was this Neo, this
Yeah.
Kango cap,
Yeah.
button up, roll the sleeves up, a vest, and he was like, yeah, this is me. And they were like, yeah, you're doing too much. That's too gay. I was like,
Right.
wait, what do you mean because I dress up? So you tell me you think they said gay because you dress well and you laugh. And if we don't do the work to squash that, and
Yeah.
black boys and boys of color, they grow up struggling with, because there's things, there was a TikTok that a young man made. The guy came up and said, yeah, for $100 million, would you suck up? Right. And the guy was like, well, if it's a trans girl, yeah, I would. And he was like, no, I'm saying that. He's like, but if she's sexy, he's like, so you would suck her? No, but if it's a trans girl, she hot. I'll do, because she said the dude was just really trying to provoke him. Like, but you understand what you're saying? Is she a trans chick? Is she sick? Is she sexy? She got booty? He's like, no, but you wouldn't do it for regular? No, for dude? No. He said, but you would suck a trans chick? He said, I already have. And then he looked at the camera like,
Oh, okay.
say something, try to shame me. I've already worked through this. But we don't have conversations. You talk about marches. I like the fact that we have these conversations, right? Because there's women in the city of New York, all of you, know that they're still to just kind of, come on, baby, just walk into this corner store. It's like, leave me alone.
Like, just try it for a second.
Yeah, you and your girlfriend. Well, we can go visit.
Yeah.
And so that sense of struggle is so across the board. So where is the place in the community that you think we need to have new conversations? And I mean, inside the house.
Where's the place inside the community?
Because I feel like sometimes I like being in spaces like this because I don't think gay men and lesbian women are friends enough. Like I got a whole bunch of lesbian sisters. We hang out, we spend time, you know what I mean? I've got lesbian wives. Some of them are very, some of them I'm the wife. Hello? Right? So I have some lesbian women who are like a bare masculine, who take the small of my back, as tall as I am, and my 6 foot, and they're my lesbian husband, right? You know what I mean? Because we don't connect enough in ways like we say we're family, right? But we're like family at the family reunion sometimes. Hello? I know y'all from somewhere.
Yeah.
I understand we're related, but this ain't gonna last long. Versus family. Like, go upstairs. I don't like that shirt on you. You'll see a green shirt in the closet. Put that on and come back out and give it to them. Oh, you're right. Take it home with you. I bought that for you. It ain't really mine. You know what I'm saying? So there's just ways inside the house. I think there are new conversations to have. So to your Good Shepherd family, where are the new conversations we can have? Like parenting, LGBT kids, no matter what, where do we need to talk more?
I think everywhere, honestly. It's everywhere because no matter where you are, like you bring a certain mentality into a different type of environment. You could be in a Starbucks, and hear somebody have a certain conversation, but, and it can sound demeaning to a lot of people. And that's honestly sometimes where I do hear some conversations like that. It's like, oh, did you see this F, over here? Like, what does he think he's doing wearing this dress? And I'm like, yeah, we need to, give you some knowledge, and sometimes I feel like, I remember telling some people sometimes, and who claim to be smart, it's like, oh, you like writing. Okay, you like philosophy. All right, you like poetry. So you like Shakespeare, you like this. They're like, yes. And I would tell them, I was like, well, did you know that they're also part of this community, that they had their little boy toys on the side? Socrates had his little lover, as did Shakespeare, as did Plato, and it all comes from somewhere. And I always tell people, it's like, this fear came because somebody back in the day, you know, got denied by somebody they like, so now they ruined it for everybody else. You know, so.
Right. What's your Mary?
Yeah, I agree. I think everywhere. I think in the churches, in all the religious communities, is one of the biggest problems that just disparages the community. And, you know, it's about love. And they just got to get over it. And people, I think everybody, my thing has always been, if every queer person stood up one day and said who they were, that would be the end of it, because there'd be so many places and so many churches and so many families. You know, every family has them, and they're hidden because of the fear of being rejected. So I think everybody needs to stand up.
That just reminds me also of Iago, from one of Shakespeare's plays. You know, he says,
Yeah.
if I bleed, do I not bleed the same as you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think again everywhere, because I feel as if sometimes, again, like we were saying about the religious thing, I feel as if sometimes the religious part of people, they see us as like objects. They don't see us as people, and that's one thing about it, because if, like you were saying, if I bleed, you would be too. So it's the same. And I think that because they don't like it, they wouldn't respect it. And I don't think that's right personally. If you don't like something, I think you should still respect it. Especially if it's a person who has feelings. I mean, every human has feelings. So I feel that it's frustrating sometimes, because it's like, you are you, I am you, and I respect you. And the fact that I respect you and you don't respect me, that bothers me. Because the same amount of respect that I'm giving you, you should be giving back.
Right.
Where do I think we need it the most? Well, I agree with
That's Mary.
Mary. I'm gonna call you Marie. I
Call
was like,
me-
it's
call me
not
whatever
Marie.
you
Call her Mom.
I don't care what you call me.
Okay, so how you said churches, because religion plays such a big part in why people are against the LGBTQ community. And I feel like it's kind of like not every church, but there are churches that pick and choose what's okay out of the Bible. Like, I can eat shrimp, I can cheat on my wife, I could kill someone, and there's redemption for them. But if you're LGBTQ plus,
You going to hell.
oh, that's it, straight to hell for you. And it's like, but what makes the LGBTQ community so like bad compared to everything else? Like, what makes it so bad compared to everything else in the Bible that's you're not supposed to, quote unquote, be doing?
And for me, Reverend Taylor, that's why these talks are important, because I think that sometimes our community wants to have the conversation and just say the church is going to change itself. We have to know who we are and who we are to who we are, so that when they say, well, Leviticus says you shall not lay with a man as you lay with a woman, it's an abomination. I was like, Leviticus also says you shall not shave the sides of your hair and tattoo. I see your tattoo and you just left the barber. So let's stop this. And how about you tell me where your wife and daughter go while they're menstruating? Because they can't stay in the house with you. And they're like, oh, wait, you know scripture? Yeah. So if we're going to have the conversation, let's have the entire conversation. And if not, how about we just stop? Because I had to talk to a pastor one time, and we were on a show on VH1, and he was like, he said something like, I have a young man in my church who's struggling with sexuality, and so he comes to me for counseling so that I can walk. And I was like, so what you're trying to say is you're going to talk him out of who he is. I said, how about this? How about you send him to me so that we can have a conversation about sexuality and struggle and journey, because I've had that conversation, and I'll send the adulterers to you. Since you know you just had a baby out of wedlock with your wife, right? So let's talk about the stuff that we're expert in. And he was like, "Well, God," but I also went to the march on the Million Ministers March on Washington 3 or 4 years later, and he approached me. He said, "You're going to be." He said, "Hey, good to see you. You're going to like what I'm about to say." And he took the stage and apologized to the LGBT community, and he's like, "And you did a lot of that." And so it's just really important that we see the weight that we can have, because as you were saying, man, who are we that we're so big that everybody's against us, that everybody's talking about us, that everybody hates us? Because there is a peacock in you that shows up in the midst of a bunch of pigeons, and they're like, "Why don't you just get smaller? Why do you have to come out? Why do you have to talk about everything?" It took me a long time to stand up in my size privilege. I'm like, I'm a Black queer man who's this big and dresses this fabulous. I must scare the hell out of a lot of people. But that's where it should be. The hell should be extracted. Like, so in the barbershop, when a lot of gay men run from the conversation, I go to a barbershop where they often hold queer conversations until I get there. "Oh, good, Red's here. Red, what you think about?" And we have real conversations. Muslim, some are not church. They just know church talk. To be very clear, there are a lot of people who like to throw church talk at you who ain't been at church since Jesus.
Exactly.
Right? So let's answer some questions. Can we do that? What communities and or resources were the most helpful in supporting your LGBT identity? I like that. What community and resource?
Well,
Say Good Shepherd.
Good Shepherd. It was Good Shepherd. I was gonna say Good Shepherd, When I was about 19 years old, I actually met somebody. She was a school safety officer in my high school. And everybody, boys, girls, doesn't matter what you are, everybody had a crush on her because she looked like Mini J-Lo. So we call her Mini J-Lo. And one day I remember speaking with her, and she knew what I was before I knew what I was. And she kind of like embraced me, and now she calls me her prodigal child. And I love it. So every time she hears me, she's like, "Oh, yay, it's my prodigal daughter. She's here. This is what she does." Yeah, and she embraced me, and she brought me into her community, and her community was huge, both gay, lesbian, transgender, and then once a year, everybody would come together at Orchard Beach, and just hold a barbecue, the last the last Saturday in July, and it was just so wonderful, and then just coming to Good Shepherd and just feeling that embrace where I can still be myself and be accepted, like that just made me feel so much better. Granted, there was maybe in the initial beginning of working with Good Shepherd, I did encounter somebody that kind of had an issue with gay people, and try to make it seem like other people had an issue with me. And until one day I don't know how it came about, but she finally said to me, I'm questioning and being your friend because you're gay, and I don't want you flirting with me. And I'm looking at her like, first of all, you're not my type.
Right.
All of this, no.
Second of all, you're not my type.
You know?
Third of all, you're not my type.
Exactly, and I told her, I was like, well, let me save you the trouble. You'll go that way, I'll go this way, and we'll just cut ties here. I don't need somebody like you in my life. And from there, she kind of tried, and I was like, I can't, no.
I'm not an experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
So because we've been inundated with questions, we're gonna grab one, and I'm just gonna toss it to somebody or raise it if you. What intersections do you believe exist in? What intersections do you exist in, and how do they impact your queer experience? For example, race, gender, religion, parenthood. Like, talk about the multiplicities of you.
That's deep. We're like Shrek. We have layers.
No, right. But that's just it. We have layers. That's good because I am Black. I am a pastor. I am a gay man. I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent, and so I think that sometimes those conversations don't happen for us in the whole fullness of the rainbow. It's like we are your mom, your grandma, you're an activist, you work in social services, and I think that sometimes people just don't see the richness of those identities, right? And so we are rainbow.
Yes.
On purpose.
And I've always believed too that sometimes people fear what they don't understand. And these days, unfortunately, that's still one of the biggest fears.
I had a male friend we're still close to this day, not as close as we used to be, but we got to this point where things were really just kind of, the energy was really magnanimous. And he said, you know, in this moment of intimacy. He said, you didn't think I was, he said, did you think I was gay? I said, no, I thought we were falling in love. And he went, oh, like just kind of, oh, that's what that, oh crap. Because he couldn't walk away from that one. He couldn't backpedal. So just kind of like, oh, wow, I thought you thought we were going to sleep together and keep moving. I was like, nope, I thought we were falling in love. Oh, you know what I mean? With that, oh, well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Elizabeth, who has shown you the most grace regarding your identity, and what did they do?
That's a good question. I definitely have to say both of my grandmothers, my aunt. And my father's side of the family, we like to say that our LGBTQ-ness is kind of like spread it out everywhere. We have a lot of that in our family, which is good because I knew that that side of the family I would be more closer to and more accepted by. When I came out to my father's mother, she was like, oh, okay. I mean, that's cool. I mean, your father's gay, your aunties are gay. You have a lot of, you know, so it was like an easy process, which I was happy about. My mother's mother, when I told her, she said the same thing, but she already knew. I don't know how. I don't know how they know, but they just know. So she was like, yeah, I mean, I already knew that. You didn't have to tell me, but I knew. And you know, she gave me a big hug after that, and I felt really loved. So, and my aunt, same thing. She already knew. And if there was like, she would ask me how I was doing at school, and like if anybody was picking on me about it. So that would be another thing too. When they would ask me if anyone was picking on me at school, because bullying for me growing up was really big. I've been bullied since I was a little kid. So when people would ask me and it was someone I was comfortable with and I would say yes and they would go to the school and defend me, that would be a huge, just a really huge ball of love for me, because bullying was, like I said, a big part of my life, and it led me to a lot of things that I didn't want to do. So when someone asks me about it and I say yes, it's like a weight off of my chest. So I definitely have to shout out my grandmothers and my aunt.
Yeah. Delilah, what has been your experience in in accessing medical and mental health support?
Oh, medical and mental health. Well, no, I've just had Medicaid my whole life because I've been in foster care since I was 15. But my friends who haven't had care have gotten coverage at Callan Lord. A lot of them have gotten coverage at Callan Lord because they're very LGBTQ friendly and affirming. They have a ton of resources. They have HIV and AIDS testing. They have PrEP. They offer referrals for top surgery and other trans surgeries as well. So that's the medical aspect.
So I want to bounce this off of you and Elizabeth, because somebody asked this question. How do you practice safety in the community? Because you were talking about bullying. I know for you, especially Latino women, you know, Latin men are the kings of the cat call.
Mhm.
How do you practice safety in the overall community?
Emotionally, safety
Say
is a
that.
big thing. And I would definitely have to say it doesn't really bother me anymore when people say things about me in general. But regarding the LGBTQ part, I would definitely go to someone that I'm safe with, that I feel safe with, or someone that can relate to me on like who's in the community. And I would talk to them and be like, hey, you know, this person said this. And it made me feel a certain type of way, but I also don't know how to feel about it. So when I go to someone that I feel safe with, I definitely do ask a lot of questions and express myself in as many ways as I can.
Okay, that's number three.
How do you
Safety.
practice safety?
How
in
do
the
I
community? Yeah.
practice safety? Oh, well, the way I personally practice safety, I've been doing martial arts my entire
Oh.
life. I've done, right now I'm currently doing Shotokan again. I've done judo, taekwondo, Wing Chun Kung Fu, kickboxing, boxing. So that's
All
how
manner
I
of ass
practice
kickery.
safety. But practicing, I think what's important is like, where do other LGBTQ people practice safety in their communities? And like, let's say they were attacked, a lot of youth don't know that they can just go to the center and they have like, you can sign up with Lambda Legal. Like they have also like legal help there. And do we have legal help here too for LGBTQ youth? No, we refer, we do referrals, legal referrals. But yeah, then there's legal referrals at the center, and I know the door might also have legal referrals as well. But for me, yeah, it's just all these martial arts. That's how I feel safe. I feel safe. I have to walk around with
Listen.
bravery.
I'm gonna care for my bodyguard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Mary, I like this question. Do you have a favorite resource or group that you go to for support?
Not now. When I started, at that time, there was EST was around, I think, but then there was a gay EST. I remember Goodman or something ran it. I don't remember the name of it now, but it's where I went at the time and found a lot of friends. They were just great groups. And I would go to the center back in those days. I would go to the bars a lot. You had a lot of support in the bars, but I stopped that. But it really was just immersing myself in community at the time. Something that, I didn't know existed for years and years and years. So once I found it, I was all over it.
I like it. What advice would you give to your younger or current self?
Just be you. Don't be scared.
Delilah was pretty brave.
Still is.
Delilah always was pretty
Obviously.
brave. I think the advice I'd give Delilah is probably just continue being you, stay brave, be courageous, and always be yourself 100%. You live your life once. You don't want to live with any regrets. So live it to the fullest.
Yeah, earlier, just not be afraid, as Delilah said. And I stopped, once I came out, I used that in the rest of my life. But, and I don't really regret, I don't think you waste time. I was learning while I was closeted, but yeah, it would have been nice to do it earlier.
The same as Melanie.
Delilah. Like, hey there,
Are
Delilah.
they both the
What's it
same?
like in New York
Yeah.
City?
Yeah. The same thing that she said, just don't be scared, be who you want to be. And it takes time to figure that out. That's okay.
We're all rarities in this world that people need to learn to appreciate us.
Yeah, people need to learn to be their authentic selves 100%. Authenticity is so important.
So I have this quote that says, "Do you, all the other spots are taken." Right? So it's just really about
True.
what is the really singular, unique thing you've been called to do. As a pastor, people ask me all the time, like, the question, like, what do you hope God says to you when you get to the gate after the life you live? And I, when I got this answer, it was 25 years ago when I first came into ministry, and I still say it to this day. I want God to stop heaven. So here he comes. Boy, you did that. That's it. Like, everything you're supposed to do, you did. I thought some things were going to stop you, freak you out, scare you, but you did that. And so this goes right, and I got that somewhere early on from my mother in the South and in the hood, just kind of like, I'm already here. What you gonna do? And so, Elizabeth, this question I think speaks to something in all of us because it's directed at Shades of Love. What steps do we need to take to support steps of Shades of Love? Is there something we can do? What can we do to help make schools better? And then somebody said, what support do young people who identify as LGBTQIA plus need in the school community? So what can those of us outside the schools do to help?
I think we need, like you were saying earlier in the beginning, more talks. Because I think it starts from home with the whole religion thing. I think that's a really big part in people being closeted and stuff. So I think there needs to be a lot more talks because I don't think, especially the kids in middle school, I don't think that they fully understand the whole concept of it. So I don't think that, they think, oh, I listen to my parents and my parents told me that this is wrong. So I don't like you for it. This is bad. So I think, again, there needs to be a lot more talks about it. Maybe like, I don't know, like in the auditorium, just bring the kids down, let them ask questions, and, ask them questions as well. Like,
Do you think that there should be more written history shared in schools of LGBTQ communities? Because in a lot of textbooks in schools and in schools in general, and especially now, I think they're creating bans that schools aren't allowed to talk about like LGBT, anything LGBTQ related. I think education, we send our kids to school as young as what, 3, 4 now, all the way up to 18, and you're telling me there's not one place to educate them or time to educate them in school. And I feel like if we start having those talks and educating kids on the terms, on the history, then that's when we will start seeing change because they will grow up with a different mindset, a more educated mindset, and a more open mind.
I think that the school public system is really, really messed up, is what I think. Especially with the history and LGBTQ part. I think those are two main things that really need to get fixed, and something needs to be done because not everything that they teach you in history is true. Because they teach you like a fraction of it. They don't teach you the full thing. And it's like we have like what, 9, 10 months in school, and then we spend half of that on one part, and then you don't ever learn that other half, because the next year then they bring you to another part, and then they only teach you one part of that, and then it's another part, and then one part of that. So it's like they only teach you 1/4 of one whole thing, and I think that's the main thing on why certain people are so little educated. So I think that needs to be, like, something needs to be done.
But my question is, has anyone at this table in school ever been taught anything about the LGBTQ community?
No.
History? Yeah, you have?
Only once in high school during an English class, we were learning about Shakespeare. We were reading one of his plays and they were giving us a breakdown of, his wife and how his wife had this partner and how Shakespeare had the same partner and how they just basically had this little triangle. And I was like, interesting. Like, this is okay. My mom always told me that this was wrong. And now I'm learning that one of my favorite writers is.
And it's interesting that you bring it up with writers, because being from DC for the longest time was called Chocolate City. We had black mayor, black city council, it was a place a black man could get a cab because the cab job was also black. So it wasn't the same kind of stigma. And so when we did kind of history conversations, they got richer. So Harlem Renaissance and knowing about County Cullen and Langston Hughes and, and Audre Lorde, it was just kind of like, James Baldwin, they would talk about who these people were and why they kind of got together in these secret silos that then grew to be a whole rich culture. And so it was just really important because it goes kind of to the final question. It says, what can allies do to be co-conspirators to the LGBT community? It's like, remember, you're already in the alphabet. The A is ally. So you're not allied to the community. If you're an ally, you're in the community. And so I always suggest to allies that they really be really conscious and not feel like they need to say, I'm an ally, which is really, I'm not gay. But I'm, I'm, you know what I mean? Let people, if you're really an ally, let people question it and deal with what we deal with, so that you can then say, well, no, I'm not queer, but my wife and I support the community, you know what I mean? Because sometimes the A gets separated as this whole kind of add-on, like, I'm here with you, thumbs up, versus I stand with you, right? And it happens because I had teachers who just had the audacity to insert history into the history, right? So you say about the pride, so they're fighting critical race theory for the same reason.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want my kids to feel bad about history. It's like,
Yeah.
it's history. It's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happened,
Yeah.
right? This is who invented this. It was that person. Bayard Rustin put together the
Yeah.
March on Washington,
Yeah.
period. So we learned that because we were in Washington. So we
Right.
learned about, social justice and organizing. And so it's just imperative as we unpack it, that you just tell the story as a story. Sometimes we can do the filtering for people. And it's like you said, Shakespeare's wife was this, and he was that, and then it's like, wait, what? And then but that kind of clarity and truth will take you to the library and make you do the deep dives that we need to do as community, right? So for our allies and community partners and friends, Elizabeth, on down, make your closing statement for Pride. When I think about Pride, I think about
When I think about pride, I think about me. I think about my family and how the people around me accept me.
I think about being really, really proud of being part of this community because I think the challenges that we've all faced and that people face in different arenas and race as well, just make them better people.
What I think of when I think of pride, I think of building communities and authenticity.
as a teacher, building communities and authenticity.
When I think of pride, I, like everyone else, and I think of unity. Like we're all one, and not just for that moment, but instilled in us that this is who we are. Like we're here, we do, we're doing great things, and we're gonna continue doing great things, and why not? And we just need people behind us.
And why not?
Why not?
And why not?
That's a t-shirt.
Thank you for your rainbow of questions. It's a Soul Train it's a veritable Soul Train scramble board of engagement. And just thank you to Good Shepherd Services for opening up this conversation. Denise, this is really
Thank you.
great because I feel like we talked about stuff that we don't often talk about, like even
Yes.
inside the house. So happy Pride.
Wait, do
What you
we
got?
have?
What you got?
Okay.
You need to check.
I want to.
All right.
Hi, everybody. I don't know if there's anyone out there that had a question they wanted to ask live. You can put your, you can unmute yourselves if you do and ask the last question of the day. But I want to thank this amazing group of guests who joined our table. I want to start, yes, thank you. I want to thank Pastor Kevin E. Taylor for being our host, bringing the fire. Somebody was texting me saying the Rev is on fire.